Hey everybody, today I want to make a comparison between two motorcycles that probably shouldn't be compared. Thanks to English Electric, I have a Zero FXS. This is the 11kw CBT legal version, and on my right here I have my Suzuki DRZ400SM. It's actually a 440, but that doesn't matter, but we are going to be using the 400 specs when we do a comparison. Now, as I say, we shouldn't really be able to compare these because this is a CBT legal 125cc equivalent, right? And for the DR, we're going to need an A2 if it falls in that category. I'm not sure on power to weight. I know some people have got these in an A2, but anyway. Or an A license, a full license basically. So as I say, you'd think the performance of this bike would be more like a 125. Well, top speed, 105 maybe, 100, 105. Comfortable cruising speed, 65 to 70. Versus about 86 miles an hour, and a comfortable cruising speed, well, of 60, 70, whatever you really want, but just know that it's going to dramatically affect your range if you're sat up at higher speeds. Many of the more high-end 125s in the petrol ranges will do 80 something miles an hour, so that's nothing particularly special. So let's look about peak output of torque. On this 400 SM, we're talking 39 Newton meters. On the Zero, the 11 kilowatt one, 106 Newton meters, more than double. And that does correlate into acceleration. 0 to 60 on this bike is about 4 seconds, 0 to 60 on this bike is about 4 seconds. But hang on a minute, we're comparing this to like a full-size bike. If you compare that to a 125, depending on what it is, anywhere between 13 and 18 seconds, or maybe never. Some 125s never get to 60 miles an hour. But so you can see there that these two bikes are very closely matched. Okay, weight, both around 130 kilos. Tank range on the DR is about 110, 120 miles. You might get a bit more out of the 400, but mine's a 440 as I say, and I work on about 110, 120 miles. On this bike it changes depending on how you ride it. If you sat on a motorway, 40, 50 miles, probably more like 40. I've now used it in a long day of doing various different ridings from, 30, 40 mile an hour roads to giving it everything this bike had through some country roads, and I got 61 miles out of a charge. However, it's not unheard of for people to get 100 miles out of a charge on these if they're really careful. Something like this isn't really aimed at someone going a long distance, lots of miles. It's about doing the daily commute. If your daily commute's less than 60 miles, you're absolutely fine. You can charge it overnight. It takes 6-7 hours to charge it because this doesn't have the quick charging options because of the one that it is. If you get the quick charging option, I believe you can charge it in about an hour. But I don't have that. This is very much the half-size battery, the basic charger. It's the most basic one. This is still £10,000 nearly, and that's just a side of electric being very new. As I've mentioned, Zero said that this can cost as little as a penny a mile, but even if it was 3 times that, it's still over time going to help pay off the costs of the bike by not buying all that fuel. But I'm not going to get into that too much because that's not what I'm interested in. I'm looking at these not from an environmental perspective, but just from a performance perspective, what's it like to use. Now, another thing to mention there is maintenance. Obviously, if you look at these two bikes, the main differences between the two is the fact that this has got a radiator, it's got an engine, an exhaust and a battery. And this has just got a motor and a battery. One moving part, not a lot to go wrong. Yes, the battery packs do over time degrade. They say that you can get about 200,000 miles out of a battery pack and expect to keep about 80% of its original capacity. Well, if you halve that, 100,000 miles, that's about what most people expect to get from a bike in its lifetime. Obviously, with an internal combustion engine, there is a lot of things to go wrong, and you don't quite have that with this. So maybe the less maintenance, the less amount of jobs that could possibly go wrong versus this, which is, it's expensive when it does go fully wrong. You can see where money could be saved over time there as well. I'm going to get out on the road in a minute and we're going to try both these bikes out. But what I'm trying to compare here is the performance of these two bikes and how this on a CBT doesn't seem to stack up to its petrol equivalent. This thing's amazing. Anyway, let's get out there. So I hope now you can see why I'm making a comparison between these two bikes, because weight, size and style is very similar. The maximum speed is not that different. Acceleration's very similar. Okay, not all the way through the range. This thing's got torque wherever you ask it to accelerate. The DR, you need to be in the right sort of gear, etc. And that is something I will mention. The DR is not the best bike to ride at 30 miles an hour because it seems to be a little bit too high for one gear and a little too low for the other, and you always find yourself hopping backwards and forwards a little bit. Now, yeah, you can change the gearing, but gearing a bike so it sits at 30 comfortably is not something I'm looking to do. Now, obviously on this that has no gearbox, no clutch, there's so much less to go wrong on it, but it also means that you don't have that, you know, gear ratios. It's comfortable sitting at 5 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 31 miles an hour, 27 miles an hour. You know, it's wherever you want it to sit, it will sit because the control on it is that fine. Now, obviously, I know my DR. I don't need to ride it to show the difference, although I'm going to do that. But there is a few things about the electric that feel better in ways. The ride of this bike is better on the road because it's got much firmer suspension designed for on-road use. In fact, it's a little bit too firm, maybe, but that's only because it helps efficiency. You can't take 3 vehicles wide across a road like that and not end up smacking each other's mirrors. This person's mirror's okay, the other one flapped right in. Who knows how that one is. This bike is very agile feeling. In fact, it feels more agile than my DR, and I think that comes down to the fact that all the weight on this bike is really low down. And not only is it really low down, I think the distribution's very good. You can feel it in a corner. When you accelerate, it just rails round it. It sits flat, and it's very confidence inspiring because it comfortably sits at that lean angle, and you know you can just apply a little bit more throttle or a little less, and because it's so soft and small incremental changes, it's very manageable mid-corner. And you know, it's pokey. As frustrating as all this traffic is, it is highlighting the fact that it's very easy to ride this bike around town. You know, if you're in a city, starting, stopping, stuff like that, just rolling along at a couple of miles an hour, this thing is fantastic for that. It's so easy to use. There is no clutch at all, so you're not having to feather the clutch and sit there selecting a gear. You're not getting hot because the engine's getting hot and it's underneath you and all that. You know, these are all things that come with a petrol engine that you don't really get with the electric. And performance-wise, you're not really losing anything. If anything, you're gaining something. Okay, well, let's try 30 to 40. Yep, that got there in a second and then kind of slightly overshot a little bit. That is something else you'll notice. When you chop the throttle on a carbed bike, for instance, like the DR, when you turn that throttle off, that's it. The engine is not producing any more power. With this, it kind of builds up and then slows down very quickly, but there is... It is like a... It ramps up and ramps down is what I'm trying to say. Now, I've got a couple of videos on this bike on the channel already, and I've still got a review to do, a full review. But these whole videos are really talking about the electric thing and seeing what the performance of this bike is really like. And one of them, I really do push the performance of this bike to the point that I kind of overheat it a little bit. That is something you can do. But my God, it's quick. Yes, the range is something that it's a problem with electrics and the cost at the moment, but it comes with the territory of being a new technology. As I say, remember what CD players were like in the past. They were very expensive, then they got smaller and much cheaper, then they became dirt cheap, then they became defunct. Okay, so now we're on the DR. First off, this feels a little bit higher. I'm also aware my rear shock is probably a bit too firm. I firmed that up a bit and I think I've gone too far with it. That became very clear when I jumped on this. Now let's start her up. Bit of a difference there. Well, that's a gear and a clutch. So we need the skills to be able to use clutch and gears and stuff like that to ride this bike. You don't need that with the electric. Another thing that's become very obvious to me instantly is how much this bike vibrates. And I'm sure all bikes vibrate to an amount. This is a single cylinder, a big old thumper, so it's going to vibrate quite a lot. This has not got the smoothness. I'm really missing that smoothness, and obviously I have to use the clutch and everything to get that. But I'm never going to get the exact same smooth feeling because I've always got this vibration going on underneath me. Okay, so here is 30 miles an hour on this bike. You see, it sounds like it's a little bit high in the range. So you're like, okay, I'll go up a gear. And now, it's a bit too low, and we're going to go over 30 if we're not careful. You see, it's just unfortunate. It's just the way that it is. It's kind of there, but you can't just accelerate from here. You have to gear change down. Right, 30 to 40. Takes longer. Definitely takes longer. Wow, actually, I'm surprised by how sluggish that then felt. I mean, you can't deny that sound, if you're into single cylinders, it's a nice soundtrack to have as you're wrapping around the lanes, as I call it. And I'm now starting to feel much more normal on this. The differences have just melted away. Yeah, okay, it vibrates more, and I'm having to do a lot more skillful control, you might say, to do whatever I want it to do. It's still fun in a different way. I mean, that's another thing, actually. The engine braking, that is one big difference. The electric bike has got regen, so when you let off the throttle, you can feel it start to do some engine braking. Well, that's just it regenerating some power back and giving you the effect of engine braking, even though the power you get back from it is only it's not a lot. Like the way they put it to me is, well, put it this way: if you go up a hill, what you get back on the other side is nowhere near what it took to put you up it. So it's not, it's not like you can go up and then get 50% back down. It doesn't work like that. But obviously, as this bike has got a gearbox and a normal engine, the engine braking is a lot more. The thing is, the electric just doesn't do that. It doesn't make that noise that we all love. That noise that it's such a part of the experience. Forgetting the license level thing, because remember, that's a lot of what I'm talking about here. The fact that this is not a CBT bike, and that Zero is. It's hard to say that the electrics don't win. But that does not mean to say that I think that electrics are better. I think they're just different. I'm very hopeful for the future. I think it will be very exciting to see what things happen, what things change. Because we've had petrol bikes pretty much the way they are for a long time. I mean look at this DRZ. This bike hasn't changed since the day it was released, beyond some bold new graphics. And we haven't even got into the environmental side of it. And I'm not going to, because, yeah, sure, electric bikes don't burn fossil fuels directly, but where does the electricity come from that goes into that? Is it more environmentally friendly because of the way that the bikes are produced? Is it more environmentally friendly for X, Y, and Z? It's a huge argument. And Zero's got information on their website as to what their thoughts on it is, and you can read it there. I'm not going to get into it because, frankly, I don't know enough about it to give you an answer that may not be misleading in some way, so let's not do that. If only some more people in the world would follow that rule. If you don't know enough about the subject to really comment on it, then don't comment on it. I'll give myself a really difficult question here. If Zero said to me, hey, we'll swap your DR for a brand new Zero. Well, okay, forgetting my emotional connection to this bike, having just completely stripped it down and rebuilt it. If Zero turned around to me, or someone turned around to me and said, I will give you a brand new FXS, the CBT one, for your DR, would you swap? And the answer is no, because of the range. Now, if they said we've got the one with 140 mile range on it, the answer is going to be very difficult to say no. I love this bike, I truly do. But that Zero, it's got so much pep, it's got so much grunt, it's so smooth and easy to ride, it's confidence inspiring, it corners like I say like a go-kart, but it's like a really good supermoto. It corners better than this, definitely. However, a bit unfair because I've got the wrong size tyre on the back and I'm about to sort that one out. Interestingly, actually, the Zero has got Rosso 2s on it, which is exactly what I'm putting on this. So in the future, maybe I'll be able to say whether his handling's been improved by sorting out that rear tyre. Backfires, that's another thing you don't get on an electric. Well, you hope you don't anyway. Oh, you don't get that on an electric, but you get something different. You get that it just pulls, and you hold on, and you're like, and then let off the throttle. I'm just really happy to have discovered how good electric bikes can actually be. I'm not going to be one of those people that hates on them because, you know, I'm scared that they're going to take my petrol motorcycles away. They're not taking it away. The government has said no more petrol engines after 2020. Okay, you can have hybrids, but a hybrid on a motorcycle? Tricky, I imagine. 20 years time, 20 years of battery development, 20 years of motor development. They're going to be insane. Utterly insane. Thank you for watching. As I say, I don't know exactly what this is, or I didn't really have a task to try and accomplish. I just wanted to try and ride the two and see how it made me feel, how the switch back to petrol affected it. And I know I've been doing this on slower town roads and not full out power. We know the electric's got this bike beat. In a straight line, this bike is going to lose against a CVT legal electric bike up to about 80, and then this bike will creep away to about 90, and then struggle its way up to 100, and then it's going to be sat there going Blah! If there's anything you want to sort of mention or something that I've mentioned or should have addressed, go ahead, comments below. It'll be an interesting discussion. Like if you've enjoyed the video, I would very much appreciate that. Subscribe if you're new here. I've still got the full-on review to do of the Zero, although these past few videos have been really quite in depth talking about it. And if you'd like to consider supporting this channel, well, then there is Patreon and links in the description to my merch. I've got mugs and t-shirts and hoodies and all sorts, and it's getting chilly, so maybe a hoodie can help keep you warm. Also, I should mention that RHOK Jeans, these Kevlar jeans that I use and literally live in, I have multiple pairs, most of them back in stock at theriderteam.com, and there's a 5% code, off code in the description. Right, catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to see future videos. This channel is made possible by the support of the audience. Please consider joining my Patreon to get early access to videos, questions answered in the monthly Q&A, your name on screen, and some exclusive content, all for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the links in the description to my merch and other ways to directly support the channel. Thanks for watching.